In a bustling downtown cafe, where the aroma of fresh coffee mingles with the soft hum of conversation, Tom Mitchell sits alone at his usual corner table. His weathered hands cradle a cup of black coffee as he watches a frustrated woman struggle with her dead phone. At 58, Tom has spent decades fixing things. It's just who he is. Without hesitation, he approaches her table, tools already in hand from his morning repair jobs. With gentle patience and decades of experience, he brings her phone back to life, then quietly returns to his coffee, expecting nothing in return. Little does he know that this simple act of kindness is about to change everything. This woman isn't just another stranger, she's Alexandra Reed, the reclusive billionaire founder of future tech industries. Could a chance encounter between a humble repairman and a tech mogul rewrite both their stories? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Tom's repair shop sat wedged between a laundromat and a second-hand bookstore, its weathered sign reading Mitchell's Fix-It Shop in faded gold letters. The morning sun filtered through the dusty display window, casting warm light across the workbench where he'd spent the better part of 3 decades. His calloused fingers traced the edge of an old brass clock he'd been restoring, the kind people nowadays would rather replace than repair. The bell above the door chimed as Mrs. Henderson shuffled in, clutching her ancient radio. "It's acting up again, Tom," she said, placing it carefully on the counter. Her arthritis-curved fingers lingered on its wooden case. It was Harold's. "You know, I remember," Tom smiled, gentle understanding in his eyes. Harold had passed 5 years ago, and the radio was more than just a radio. It was a piece of her heart. "I'll have it singing again by Thursday, Eleanor." After she left, Tom's gaze drifted to the photograph on his desk. Margaret smiled back. At him, their daughter Sarah perched on her lap, both frozen in time 16 years ago. The photo was taken just months before the cancer diagnosis that would change everything. His wife had faced her illness the way she faced everything, with quiet strength and unfailing grace. "You'd be proud of our girl, Maggie," he whispered, adjusting the frame slightly. Sarah had inherited her mother's determination. At 24, she was raising her son Jason alone, working 2 jobs, and still finding time to check on her father several times a week. Tom wished he could do more to help, but the shop barely covered its own expenses these days. People wanted new, not fixed. They wanted sleek and shiny, not the worn comfort of familiar things. The morning passed in a rhythm of small repairs. A teenager's cracked tablet screen, a retiree's malfunctioning coffee maker, a young mother's stuck washing machine. Each item came with a story, a piece of someone's life that needed mending. Tom listened as much as he fixed, understanding that sometimes people needed both kinds of repair. During lunch, he pulled out his worn leather tool pouch, the same one he'd carried to the cafe yesterday when he'd helped that woman with her phone. He hadn't thought twice about it at the time. Fixing things was as natural as breathing to him, a simple truth he'd learned from his father and hoped to pass on to his grandson Jason. The afternoon brought Mr. Chen from the Chinese restaurant down the street, worried about his ancient cash register. "New one's too expensive," he explained, "and this one knows all my stories." Tom nodded, understanding perfectly. Some things carried more than their functional value. They held memories, history, the weight of years. As the day wound down, Tom checked his ledger. The numbers were getting tighter each month. Chain stores and their endless warranties were squeezing small repair shops like his into obsolescence. Still, he couldn't imagine doing anything else. Every fixed item was a small victory against the throwaway culture of modern life. Sarah stopped by just before closing, Jason's small hand in hers. The boy immediately gravitated to Tom's workbench, his eyes wide with curiosity. "Can I help, Grandpa?" he asked, reaching for a screwdriver. "Sure can, buddy," Tom smiled, pulling up a stool. He showed Jason how to hold the tool properly, explaining each step as they worked together on a simple table lamp. Sarah watched them, her expression a mixture of love and worry. Tom knew that look. She carried too much on her young shoulders. "Dad," she started, her voice hesitant. "The hospital called about the payment plan." She trailed off, but Tom understood. Margaret's medical bills still loomed over them, a shadow that refused to fade. He assured Sarah he'd figure something out, though he wasn't sure how. As they locked up for the night, Tom paused to straighten the open sign in the window. Through the glass, he could see his reflection overlaid on the familiar interior of his shop. Grey hair, lined face, eyes that had seen both joy and sorrow. Behind him, the photo of Margaret seemed to glow in the evening light, a reminder of everything he'd had, everything he'd lost, and everything he still needed to protect. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, sunlight painting golden rectangles across the cafe's worn linoleum floor. Tom sat at his usual corner table, the morning paper spread before him, though his eyes weren't really focusing on the headlines. His mind kept drifting back to yesterday's encounter, the frustrated woman with the dead phone, the simple repair that had taken just minutes. The chair across from him scraped against the floor. Tom looked up to find her standing there, impeccably, dressed in a charcoal grey suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. She smiled, and something in her eyes made him think of old photographs, a hint of sadness behind the polish. "May I join you?" she asked, her voice softer than he'd expected. Tom nodded, folding his paper away. "I wanted to thank you properly for yesterday," she said, sliding into the seat. "I'm Alexandra Reed." She placed a business card on the table between them. The embossed silver lettering caught the morning light. Future Tech Industries, Alexandra Reed, CEO and founder. Tom's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. Everyone knew Future Tech. The company had revolutionized personal electronics over the past decade. Their headquarters dominated the city skyline, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that seemed worlds away from his modest repair shop. "I'm just Tom," he said finally, setting his cup down. "Tom Mitchell, and it was nothing special, just a loose connection that needed fixing." Alexandra leaned forward slightly. "But that's exactly what made it special, Mr. Mitchell. You saw someone in need and helped without hesitation. No expectations, no agenda. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" The bitterness in her last words surprised him. She caught herself and smiled again, but Tom had recognized the loneliness beneath her polished exterior. It was the same expression he sometimes saw in his own mirror. "I have a proposition for you," she continued, her fingers tracing the edge of her business card. "Future Tech is launching a new initiative. We're looking to bridge the gap between cutting-edge technology and practical hands-on expertise. Someone with your skills, your approach to problem-solving, you'd be invaluable." Tom's laugh was gentle but immediate. "Ms. Reed, I appreciate the thought, but I'm just a small-time repairman. I wouldn't know the first thing about—" "You fixed my phone in 3 minutes," she interrupted. "Our service center would have taken 3 days. You didn't just fix it, you explained what you were doing, made it seem simple. That's exactly what we need." The morning crowd was thinning out, their voices creating a soft backdrop to this surreal conversation. Through the window, Tom could see people hurrying past, their faces buried in their phones, disconnected from each other and the world around them. "The position comes with full benefits," Alexandra added quietly, and Tom's thoughts flickered to Sarah's hospital bills, to Jason's future. "And the salary would be substantial." Tom's weathered fingers wrapped around his coffee cup. "I have a shop," he said. "Customers who depend on me." "Keep it," she replied immediately. "Work with us during the day. Maintain your shop in the evenings if you wish. We're offering opportunity, Mr. Mitchell, not chains." A young waitress appeared, coffee pot in hand. Alexandra waved her away with a smile, then turned back to Tom. "I don't make offers lightly, Mr. Mitchell. There's something genuine about you, something real in a world that increasingly feels artificial. Will you at least come tour our facility, see what we're trying to build?" Tom studied her face, seeing She passed the carefully applied makeup and expensive clothes to something familiar, someone who understood the value of fixing things, of making them whole again. He thought of his shop, of the dwindling customers and mounting bills, of Sarah's worried eyes and Jason's curious hands. "I'll think about it," he said finally. Alexandra stood, smoothing her suit jacket. "That's all I ask." She placed another card on the table. "This one has my personal number. Call me when you're ready to see what we can build together." As she walked away, Tom picked up the business card, turning it over in his hands. The morning light caught the silver lettering, making it shimmer like possibilities. That evening, Tom sat at his kitchen table, a stack of medical bills spread before him like a paper maze. The largest one bore yesterday's date, "Final Notice," stamped in harsh red letters across the top. Margaret's treatments had drained their savings, and even 6 years later the debt felt like a weight pressing down on his chest. Sarah found him there when she dropped by after her shift at the diner. She still wore her waitress uniform, the fabric worn thin at the edges from too many washings. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She'd been picking up extra shifts again. "Dad?" She touched his shoulder gently. "What's wrong?" He told her about Alexandra Reed, about the job offer, watching his daughter's eyes widen as he mentioned future tech industries. When he finished, Sarah sank into the chair beside him, her expression thoughtful. "It sounds almost too good to be true," she said, picking up one of the medical bills. Her fingers traced the amount due, a sum that represented 3 months of her diner wages. "But maybe that's exactly why you should consider it." "I'd feel like I was abandoning the shop," Tom admitted. "Our customers, Dad." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "Those bills aren't going away, and the shop," she hesitated. "We both know it's not what it used to be." Tom stood and walked to the window. The evening light painted long shadows across his small backyard, where Jason's toy truck lay abandoned near the aging swing set. The same swing set where he'd once pushed Sarah, where Margaret had laughed at their daughter's demands to go higher, higher. "Ms. Reed said I could keep the shop open evenings," he said slowly. "Run both, at least for a while." "Then what's holding you back?" Sarah asked. "Really?" Tom turned to face his daughter, seeing so much of Margaret in her determined expression. "Change, I suppose. At my age," he shook his head, "it feels like betraying everything I've built." "Or building something new," Sarah countered. She stood and wrapped her arms around him, the way she used to when she was little. "Mom would want you to take care of yourself too, you know. Not just everyone else." Later that night, after Sarah and Jason had gone home, Tom pulled out Alexandra's business card. The silver lettering seemed to glow in the dim kitchen light. His flip phone, ancient by today's standards, lay beside it. Such a contrast, these two pieces of his possible future. He thought about his customers, Mrs. Henderson with her radio, Mr. Chen and his cash register, good people who trusted him with their treasured possessions. But Sarah was right. There were fewer of them every year, replaced by a generation that preferred replacement to repair. The medical bill caught his eye again. Behind it lay others: Jason's upcoming school expenses, Sarah's struggle to make rent, the shop's dwindling income. He'd always believed that anything could be fixed with enough patience and the right tools. Maybe this was the universe offering him a new set of tools. Tom picked up his phone and dialed the number on the card. It rang twice before Alexandra's. Voice answered, warm and somehow unsurprised. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, "I was hoping you'd call." "About that tour," he said, his voice steady despite the way his heart hammered against his ribs. "Would tomorrow be too soon?" Tomorrow would be perfect. He could hear the smile in her voice. "Shall we say 9 o'clock? I'll send a car." After hanging up, Tom walked through his small house, touching familiar things. The Afghan Margaret had crocheted, the family photos on the wall, the ancient clock that had been his father's. Each item held memories, stories, pieces of the life he'd built. But maybe Sarah was right. Maybe it wasn't about betraying the past, but building a future. He picked up the final notice bill one last time, then tucked it into his wallet. A reminder. of why sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take a chance on change. The future tech building gleamed like a sword thrust into the morning sky, its glass surfaces reflecting clouds and sunlight in equal measure. Tom stood in the lobby, feeling out of place in his freshly pressed shirt and tie, Sarah's insistence. The employee badge clipped to his lapel felt foreign, its sleek surface a stark contrast to the worn leather of his tool pouch. "Mr. Mitchell." Alexandra emerged from an elevator, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor. Today, she wore navy blue, her silver hair elegant against the darker fabric. "Welcome to Future Tech." The security guard who'd issued Tom's badge straightened instinctively as Alexandra approached. Tom noticed how others in the lobby watched her too, not with fear exactly, but with a kind of wary respect. She seemed either not to notice or had long since grown accustomed to the "Attention! Follow me," she said, gesturing toward the elevator. "Your team is eager to meet you." The elevator rode smoothly upward, its digital display marking their ascent past floor after floor of what Alexandra called innovation spaces. Tom's weathered reflection in the mirrored walls looked increasingly out of place with each passing floor. "Having second thoughts?" Alexandra asked quietly. "Just wondering if I remember how to work with people who don't need their toasters fixed," Tom replied, earning a genuine laugh from her. The elevator opened onto the 42nd floor, and Tom's world transformed. Gone were the traditional offices he'd expected. Instead, the space flowed organically, filled with clusters of young people working at standing desks, lounging in beanbag chairs, or gathered around holographic displays that made his eyes hurt if he looked at them too long. "This is our development hub," Alexandra explained, leading him through the space. Conversations hushed briefly as they passed, curious eyes following their progress. "Where we turn ideas into reality." They reached a glass-walled conference room where several people waited. Tom recognized the nervous energy of a team trying to look casual. Alexandra made introductions. Emily Chen, head of user experience. Marcus Wong, lead software architect. Dr. Sarah Williams, chief of research and development. All of them looked young enough to be his children. "And this," Alexandra said, gesturing to a wall covered in complex diagrams and flowcharts, "is Project Revival." Tom stepped closer, studying the charts. Through the technical jargon, a pattern emerged, one he recognized from decades of repairs. "You're trying to make technology more fixable," he said slowly. "Not just fixable," Alexandra corrected. "Understandable, accessible. Technology shouldn't be a black box that people are afraid to open." Emily stepped forward, tablet in hand. "We've been developing a network of repair centers, but we're missing something crucial." She glanced at Alexandra. "The human element. That's where you come in, Mr. Mitchell," Marcus added. "We need someone who understands both the technical and the personal side of repairs." Tom touched his employee badge absently, the smooth plastic warm under his fingers. "I'm not sure I speak your language," he admitted. "That's exactly why we need you," Dr. Williams said. "We're drowning in technical language. We need someone who can translate it into human terms." The morning passed in a blur of presentations and demonstrations. Tom's head spun with terms like user interface and diagnostic algorithms. But beneath the jargon, he recognized familiar problems. People needed things fixed. They needed to understand how things worked. Some things never changed, even in this gleaming tower of innovation. During a break, Tom found himself alone with Alexandra in her office. The view of the city was breathtaking, his own shop barely visible in the distant maze of streets below. "Overwhelming, isn't it?" she asked, watching him. "A bit," he admitted. "But also," he paused, searching for the right words. "Familiar in a strange way. Different tools, same problems." Alexandra smiled, and for a moment her carefully maintained corporate persona slipped. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say." She moved to stand beside him at the window. "People think technology has to be complicated. They've forgotten the simple joy of understanding how things work, of fixing what's broken. Tom touched his badge again, reading the name printed beneath his photo. Thomas Mitchell, Technical Integration Specialist. The title felt grandiose. For a man who'd spent his life fixing toasters and radios, but maybe that was the point. Sometimes the simplest solutions came from unexpected places. "Well," he said, "I suppose we'd better remind them." The blueprint spread across Alexandra's desk like a map to the future, its crisp blue lines detailing a vision that grew more ambitious with each passing day. 2 weeks into his new role, Tom found himself spending more time in her office, there, conversations flowing easily between technical challenges and broader philosophies. "Look here," Alexandra said, her finger tracing a network of interconnected nodes. Each dot represents a potential repair center, not just in major cities, but smaller communities too, places where people still value fixing things. Tom leaned closer, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. The blueprint showed more than just locations. It detailed a complete ecosystem of repair and education. Training programs, community workshops, youth mentorship opportunities. It was everything he'd dreamed of doing with his own shop, scaled to touch millions of lives. "It's beautiful," he said quietly, "but the board will never approve it. The profit margins are better than they think." Alexandra straightened, a familiar determination hardening her voice. "Do you know how much electronic waste we generate each year? How much money people spend replacing things that could be fixed? We're not just selling repairs, Tom. We're selling sustainability, independence, knowledge." Her passion was contagious. Tom found himself pointing to various sections of the blueprint, suggesting modifications based on his decades of experience. "If we add diagnostic kiosks here, people could learn basic troubleshooting before deciding if they need professional help. And these workshop spaces, they should be modular, adaptable for different types of repairs." Alexandra made notes in her elegant handwriting, her silver hair catching the afternoon light. Tom noticed how she bit her lower lip when concentrating, a surprisingly human gesture from someone who usually maintained such careful control. "The board meeting is next week," she said finally. "I want you there with me, Tom. They need to hear." This from someone who's lived it. The thought of presenting to Future Tech's board of directors made his stomach tighten. But Tom nodded. He understood what was at stake. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about preserving a way of thinking, a way of living that was in danger of disappearing. "I'll need to modify my evening shop hours," he said, already mentally rearranging his schedule. "Sarah can help cover some days, but how is she managing?" Alexandra interrupted, her tone softening. "Your daughter?" Tom smiled, touched by her genuine interest. "Better, actually. The benefits package. Jason's medical expenses are covered now. She's even talking about taking some college classes." Alexandra's eyes returned to the blueprint, but her expression had changed subtly. "My father was like you," she said quietly, "always fixing things. Not just machines, but people's problems too. He died before I could—" She trailed off, then squared her shoulders. "This project matters, Tom, more than the board realizes." They spent the next hour refining the presentation, Tom's practical knowledge complementing Alexandra's corporate expertise. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the blueprint, Tom realized something had shifted between them. They weren't just CEO and employee anymore. They were partners in something larger than themselves. "There's one more thing," Alexandra said as Tom gathered his things to leave. "The prototype center. I think it should be built around your shop." Tom stopped, stunned. "My shop? It's perfect. You already have the community connections, the trust. We'll expand it, modernize the equipment, but keep its heart intact, just like everything else we're trying to do." Looking at the blueprint one last time, Tom saw it with new eyes. Each line, each carefully planned detail represented a bridge between the world he knew and the future Alexandra envisioned. A future where fixing things wasn't just about repairs, but about healing the growing disconnect between people and the objects that filled their lives. "Next week, then," he said, his voice gruff with emotion, "we'll show them what's possible." Alexandra smiled, and in that moment she wasn't the powerful CEO of future tech, but simply a woman who shared his belief in the importance of mending what was broken. "Yes," she said softly, "we will." The letter arrived on expensive stationery, hand-delivered to Tom's shop after hours. The return address belonged to Tech Corp Industries, Future Tech's largest competitor. As Tom read it, the fluorescent lights humming overhead seemed to grow. Louder, more insistent. "Dear Mr. Mitchell," it began, deceptively cordial, "it has come to our attention that your recent association with Future Tech Industries may pose certain complications. Your reputation for integrity makes this letter necessary. Are you aware of Alexandra Reed's true motivations for Project Revival?" Tom's hands tightened on the paper. The letter went on to detail allegations, patent infringements, stolen innovations, personal vendettas. It suggested that Alexandra's interest in repair centers was a smokescreen for something darker, a way to gather data on competitors' products to exploit market vulnerabilities. "We believe someone of your standing deserves to know the truth." The letter concluded, "Ms. Reed's history with our company, and particularly with our CEO, goes deeper than she's likely revealed. For everyone's benefit, we encourage you to reconsider your involvement. Enclosed is a preliminary offer for your consulting services, should you wish to align yourself with a more transparent organization." The check that fell from the envelope had more zeros than Tom had ever seen in one place. He set it aside, but its presence seemed to fill the small shop, a tangible weight pressing against his conscience. His phone buzzed. Alexandra calling. For the first time since they'd met, he hesitated before answering. "Tom." Her voice carried a note of tension he'd never heard before. "I need you to come to the office. Now." The Future Tech building was eerily quiet after hours, their footsteps echoing through empty corridors. Alexandra's office, usually so ordered, showed signs of disarray. Papers scattered across her desk, coffee cups bearing lipstick marks at various levels of emptiness. "You got one too, didn't you?" she asked without preamble. When he nodded, she sank into her chair, suddenly looking older, more vulnerable. "I should have told you everything from the beginning. About Tech Corp." Tom settled into the chair across from her, the threat letter heavy in his pocket. "About James Morrison." Alexandra's fingers drummed against her desk. "Their CEO. We were engaged once, before Future Tech, before any of this. We had different visions. He believed in planned obsolescence, in keeping customers dependent on constant upgrades. I wanted to empower people, teach them to understand and maintain their technology." She stood, moving to the window. The city lights below mimicked the stars. Neither of them could see through the urban glare. The patents they mentioned. They were my innovations, developed in my private lab. When I left him, James claimed they belonged to Tech Corp. The courts disagreed, but he's never accepted that. "And Project Revival?" Tom asked quietly. Alexandra turned, and he saw something fierce in her eyes. "Is exactly what I told you it is. A chance to change how people relate to technology. Yes, it will hurt. TechCorp's business model. Yes, it's personal for me, but not for the reasons they implied." Tom pulled out the letter and the check, laying them on her desk. Alexandra glanced at the amount and gave a bitter laugh. "He always did think everything had a price." "Why me?" Tom asked. "Why choose a small-time repairman for something this big?" "Because you remind me of what I used to believe in, what I still believe in." Alexandra moved closer, her voice dropping. "When you fixed my phone that day, you didn't just repair a device. You showed me that everything I've fought for still matters." Tom thought about his shop, about Sarah and Jason, about the community that trusted him with their broken treasures. He thought about the blueprint spread across this very desk just days ago, filled with possibility. "Well then," he said, picking up the threat letter and deliberately tearing it in half. "I suppose we'd better prove them wrong." Alexandra's relief was visible, though she tried to hide it. "The board meeting tomorrow will go ahead as planned," Tom finished. "Though maybe we should mention that our competitors seem awfully interested in stopping us. Might make the board think we're onto something big." A slow smile spread across Alexandra's face, the kind that suggested she hadn't gotten to where she was by backing down from fights. "Tom Mitchell," she said, "I think you're getting the hang of corporate strategy." He stood, straightening his jacket. "No strategy. Just something my father taught me. The best way to fix what's broken is to keep working until it's right." The board meeting had gone better than expected. Tom's straightforward presentation style, coupled with Alexandra's strategic revelations about TechCorp's interest, had won over even the most skeptical directors. Now, 3 days later, Alexandra stood in Tom's shop after hours, holding a wooden box that seemed out of place against her tailored suit. "It was my mother's," she said, placing it carefully on his workbench. "It hasn't played music in years." The music box was Swiss-made, probably. Late 1940s, its wooden surface worn smooth by decades of handling. Tom opened it gently, listening to the mechanical components inside. "The main spring's still good," he murmured. "Probably just needs cleaning and realignment." Alexandra lingered as he worked, her usual corporate poise softening in the familiar atmosphere of his shop. She picked up a photo of Sarah and Jason that sat near his tools. "They look happy." "That was at the park last Sunday," Tom said, carefully removing the music box's mechanism. "Jason loves the swings, just like his mother did at that age." "And their father?" Alexandra asked quietly. "Is he gone?" Tom's hands remained steady as he worked. "Left when Sarah was pregnant. Some people run from responsibility. Others—" he glanced at her. "Others build billion-dollar companies." A small smile touched Alexandra's lips. "Is that what you think I did? Ran toward responsibility? Didn't you?" The mechanism was coming apart easily under his experienced fingers. "Your mother's music box. Was she like mine, always trying to fix things?" Alexandra's laugh held a trace of old pain. "The opposite. She was a concert pianist, believed in perfection, in discarding anything flawed. This box," she touched the worn wood, "it was the only thing she kept that wasn't perfect. I never knew why." Tom worked in comfortable silence for a while, cleaning each tiny component. Alexandra watched, occasionally asking questions about his process. There was something intimate about sharing this space, this moment, with someone who understood the value of broken things. "After my father died," she said suddenly, "I found a letter from my mother. She'd written it years before, but never sent it. She wrote about this music box, how my father had given it to her when they were young, how its slight imperfection in timing made their song unique. She'd kept it as a reminder that perfection isn't always what we think it is." Tom aligned the last gear, feeling the mechanism catch and hold. "Would you like to hear it play?" Alexandra nodded, her composure cracking slightly. Tom wound the spring and opened the lid. The melody that emerged was crystalline, pure, clair de lune, played on tiny steel teeth. Alexandra's eyes closed, her hand finding the workbench for support. "Mom used to play this," she whispered, "on nights when she thought everyone was asleep. Not the perfect concert version, just playing for herself." Tom watched her face in the dim shop light, seeing past the successful CEO to the daughter who still missed her parents, who'd built an empire, perhaps trying to bridge the gap between her father's practicality and her mother's pursuit of perfection. "Sometimes," he said gently, "we need things to be a little broken, gives them character, makes them ours." Alexandra opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. "Is that why you do this? Fix things others would throw away?" "Partly." He carefully closed the music box, but mostly because everything deserves a second chance. Machines, people, dreams. She reached for the box, her fingers brushing his. Neither pulled away immediately. "Thank you, Tom. Not just for this. I know." The shop felt smaller suddenly, more intimate. "Alexandra, you should come to dinner," she said quickly. "You and Sarah and Jason, my house, this weekend, to celebrate the board's approval." Tom recognized the deflection, but accepted it. Some things needed time to repair themselves. "We'd like that." She gathered her music box, holding it close. At the door, she paused. "My father would have liked you, Tom. He believed in people who could see the worth in broken things." After she left, Tom sat at his workbench, the ghost of Claire de Lune still hanging in the air. His hands smelled of machine oil and wood polish, but he could still feel the warmth where her fingers had touched his. Some repairs, he was learning, changed more than just the things being fixed. The headlines exploded across Tom's tablet screen, each one more sensational than the last. "Future Tech's secret weapon, small-town repairman," declared the Business Chronicle. "Tech giant goes retro, the return of repair culture," proclaimed the Digital Daily. But it was the Technology Times headline that made his coffee go cold. "Alexandra Reed's new project, business innovation or personal vendetta." Sarah had brought him the tablet during their morning coffee, her expression caught between concern and excitement. "You're trending, Dad, whatever that means." The articles painted him in various lights. A folk hero challenging corporate waste, a pawn in a tech industry power struggle, the human interest angle in a larger corporate drama. One photo showed him and Alexandra leaving Future Tech together, her hand resting lightly on his arm as they talked. The caption speculated about their relationship, both professional and personal. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, watching him scroll through the coverage. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. "Marcus from the development team. Turn on Channel 7, now." The cafe's ancient television crackled to life just in time to catch James Morrison, TechCorp's CEO, mid-interview. His perfectly tailored suit and practiced smile couldn't quite hide the predatory gleam in his eyes. "While we applaud Future Tech's apparent interest in sustainability," he was saying, "we have concerns about their methods. Mr. Mitchell's qualifications for such a large-scale project are questionable at best, and Ms. Reed's personal involvement raises certain ethical questions." The camera cut to footage of Tom's shop, making it look smaller, shabbier than it was. Then to an old photo of Alexandra and Morrison together at some corporate event, their younger selves smiling for the cameras. "Dad?" Sarah's hand found his shoulder. "Maybe we should—" The cafe's door chimed. Alexandra stood there looking, both composed and somehow vulnerable in a simple grey dress rather than her usual power suits. The few morning customers fell silent, recognition dawning on their faces. "Tom," she said quietly, "we need to talk." They ended up in his shop, away from prying eyes. Alexandra paced between the workbenches while Tom read through the press packet her PR team had prepared. "They want me to do interviews," he said finally. "Talk shows, magazine profiles." "You don't have to." Alexandra stopped pacing. "We can handle the media differently." "By hiding me away, pretending I'm just a consultant." Tom set down the packet. "That would prove Morrison right." "Nothing about this is proving Morrison right." Her voice carried an edge of steel. "He's trying to discredit Project Revival by making it personal, by making it about our past." "Isn't it personal?" Tom asked gently. "For both of us?" Alexandra's shoulders dropped slightly. "Yes, but not the way they're implying. You're not some prop in a corporate revenge plot, Tom. You're—" She trailed off, unable or unwilling to finish the thought. The morning sun filtered through the shop's dusty windows, catching the silver in Alexandra's hair, highlighting the worry lines around her eyes. On his workbench, yesterday's repairs. Waited, Mrs. Henderson's radio, a young couple's vintage record player, a child's beloved remote control car. Real things that needed fixing, while the world outside spun stories about power plays and hidden agendas. "I'll do the interviews," Tom said finally. "But my way. No PR scripts, no corporate messaging. Just the truth. The truth? Alexandra's laugh held a note of anxiety. Which is that sometimes fixing things means facing what's broken. In machines, in systems. He met her eyes. In ourselves. She moved closer, close enough that he could smell her subtle perfume. The board is nervous. The stock price dipped this morning. If this becomes too much of a spectacle, then we'll fix that too. Tom smiled. It's what we do, isn't it? Alexandra's hand found his workbench, fingers tracing the worn wood. Morrison won't stop. He'll dig deeper, try to find anything he can use against us, against you and Sarah. Let him. Tom's voice was firm. Some things are worth fighting for. The morning light caught Alexandra's face as she turned to him, and for a moment he saw past the corporate armor to the woman who had trusted him with her mother's music box, who believed, as he did, in the value of mending what was broken. Together, then? She asked softly. Together, he agreed. And in that word was a promise that went beyond press releases and corporate strategies, beyond the headlines that would continue to speculate about their relationship. It was a promise to face whatever came next, not as CEO and repairman, but as two people who understood that the most important repairs often happened in the spaces between broken and whole. Mrs. Henderson was the first to sign the petition. Her arthritis-gnarled fingers gripped the pen tightly as she wrote, her dignified script taking up more space than necessary. Been coming to Tom Mitchell for 15 years, she announced to the growing crowd in the shop. Fixed more than just my radio, he did. Fixed my faith in people. The petition had started organically, born in the wake of Morrison's media assault. Emily from Future Tech had found it online. Thousands of signatures, hundreds of personal stories. Now a printed version circulated through Tom's shop, carried by the very people whose trust Morrison had tried to question. Mr. Chen arrived with lunch for everyone, his way of contributing to what he called the resistance. He'd closed his restaurant early, something Tom had never seen him do in 20 years of friendship. You fix my register, he said simply. I fix your hunger. Community, yes? The shop had become an unlikely war room. Alexandra's corporate team occupied one corner, their laptops and tablets incongruous among the old appliances. In another corner, Sarah coordinated with local business owners, her waitress uniform replaced by a borrowed Future Tech blazer. Jason entertained himself by organizing Tom's smaller tools, occasionally offering them to harried executives who had no idea what to do with them. The online petition has passed 50,000 signatures, Emily announced, her tablet displaying scrolling names and comments. And look at this, people are sharing their repair stories. It's not just about Tom anymore, it's becoming a movement. Alexandra moved from her makeshift desk by the window, where she'd been fielding calls from board members all morning. Her silver hair was slightly disheveled, her usual corporate polish softened by hours of crisis management. Yet somehow she looked more alive than Tom had ever seen her. Morrison's team is pushing back, she said, but her voice held more determination than worry. They're claiming the signatures are manufactured, that we're manipulating public sentiment. Then he doesn't know much about community, Tom replied, watching as another neighbor entered the shop, petition page in hand. It was Dave from the hardware store, who should have been his competitor, but had instead sent customers Tom's way for years. Tell that to the shareholders, Alexandra sighed. Our stock dropped another 3 points this morning. Show them this instead. Sarah approached with her tablet, displaying social media feeds. People were posting photos of their local repair, shops sharing stories of items saved from landfills, of skills passed down through generations. The hashtag #FixDon'tReplace was trending. It's not just about us anymore, Tom realized aloud. It's about everything we've been trying to say, about value and sustainability and community, Alexandra finished, her hand finding his arm. The touch was brief but grounding, reminding him of all they'd built together. Mrs. Henderson's voice rose above the general murmur. Young man, she called to one of Alexandra's executives, would you like to know why I trust Tom Mitchell? Without Waiting for an answer, she pulled out her radio, the one Tom had fixed countless times. This was George's, my husband's. When he passed, I thought I'd lost his voice forever, but Tom, he understood, didn't just fix the radio, fixed a piece of my heart. The executives' practiced corporate expressions softened. Around the shop, others began sharing their stories. Mr. Chen's ancient cash register that held 20 years of his American dream, Dave's first tool set, passed down from his father, Sarah's childhood music box that still played her mother's favorite tune. Alexandra moved to the window, Tom following. Outside, more people were arriving, many carrying broken items, others simply coming to show support. "Look at them," she said softly. "Morrison thinks everything has a price. He never understood that some things are valuable precisely because they can't be bought." Tom watched his community rally, saw the way they merged seamlessly with Alexandra's corporate world. The petition passed from hand to hand, gathering signatures, but more importantly, gathering stories. Each name was a thread in a larger fabric, weaving together everything they believed in. "You know what my father used to say?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. He said, "Fixing things isn't about making them new again. It's about helping them remember what they were meant to be." Alexandra's hand found his, there in the shadow of his workbench. Outside, the crowd continued to grow. Inside, stories continued to be shared, and somewhere in between, something new was being built from all these broken pieces, something stronger than corporate strategies or market shares, something that felt remarkably like hope. The patent application lay on Alexandra's desk, its technical language disguising what Tom considered simple common sense. Smart diagnostic integration with human expertise enhancement was corporate speak for what his father would have called teaching people to fish. "It's brilliant," Alexandra said, pacing her office with renewed energy. "We're not just creating repair centers, we're patenting the entire knowledge-sharing system, the diagnostic tools, the training protocols, the community engagement model. Everything Morrison claimed was impossible to standardize." The idea had come to Tom during a late-night repair session at his shop. Alexandra had stayed to help, her designer dress traded for borrowed overalls, her corporate polish softened by smudges of motor oil. They were fixing an old food processor while discussing Project Revival's challenges. "See this?" Tom had said, showing her how the motor connected to the drive shaft. "Every brand does it differently, but the principle's the same. If people understood the principles, they could adapt to any variation." Alexandra had finished, her eyes lighting up. "Tom, that's it. That's what we've been missing." Now, a week later, the patent application represented their breakthrough. It wasn't just about repairs anymore. It was about creating a bridge between technical expertise and practical knowledge, between corporate innovation and community wisdom. "The board meeting's in an hour," Alexandra said, pausing at her window. The city stretched below them, a maze of problems waiting to be fixed. "Morrison will be there." As a major shareholder, Tom nodded. "Sarah told me. She's gotten good at corporate research." Alexandra smiled. "She's gotten good at a lot of things. The community outreach program was her idea, you know. Combining repair workshops with social media storytelling. The mention of storytelling brought back memories of the previous week's viral video, Jason proudly explaining to Alexandra how to properly sort screwdrivers, her genuine delight at his expertise caught on Sarah's phone. The clip had humanized. "Future tech in ways no PR campaign could match. Morrison will try to block the patent," Alexandra continued, her voice tightening. "He'll claim it's too broad, too basic to protect." "Let him," Tom said, standing to join her at the window. "Some things work better when they're shared anyway." She turned to face him, close enough that he could see the flecks of gray in her green eyes. "This isn't just about the patent for him. When I left TechCorp, left him, he said I'd never succeed by fixing things, that the future belonged to those who created new needs, not those who maintained the old. And now I understand what I couldn't explain then." Her hand found the patent application, fingers tracing its edges. It's not about old versus new. It's about connection between people and their possessions, their communities, their stories. Tom thought about his shop, about Mrs. Henderson's radio and Mr. Chen's cash register, about Alexandra's mother's music box, now displaying proudly on her office shelf. Things carry memories, he said quietly. When we fix them, we're really fixing moments in time. That's going in the presentation. Alexandra smiled, some of her tension easing. Along with the market projections, sustainability metrics, and profit forecasts, of course. Of course. Tom's hand covered hers on the patent papers, though maybe we should lead with Jason's screwdriver tutorial. Her laugh was interrupted by Emily bursting into the office. They're here, Morrison and his team. They're in the conference room already. Alexandra straightened, corporate armor sliding back into place. But something of the woman who'd helped fix a food processor at midnight remained in her eyes. Ready? She asked Tom. He adjusted his tie, still not completely comfortable in corporate attire. I was thinking, maybe we should take something with us to demonstrate the patent specs aren't enough. Patents are just papers. I'm talking about proof. He reached into his battered leather bag and pulled out a small device. Remember that diagnostic tool we developed, the one that learns from each repair? Alexandra's eyes widened. You got it working? Better. He grinned. I simplified it, made it something anyone could use, could understand. Like my father always said, the best tools teach as they're used, she finished, having heard his father's wisdom quoted often enough now to know it by heart. Tom Mitchell, you're either brilliant or crazy. My money's on both, Sarah said. From the doorway, holding a tablet displaying their presentation. The board's waiting. Tom offered Alexandra his arm, feeling the weight of the diagnostic tool in his pocket. Shall we go teach them something about fixing things? Her smile held all the determination that had built future tech, softened by something warmer, more personal. Together, she said, taking his arm. Behind them, the patent application sat on the desk, its technical language attempting to capture something that went far beyond legal protection, the simple, powerful truth that some things were meant to be saved. The board meeting had gone better than anyone dared hope. Morrison's attempts to discredit the patent had faltered in the face of Tom's practical demonstration and Alexandra's passionate defense. Now, in the quiet of her home, Alexandra turned, her mother's ring over in her hands, its sapphire catching the evening light. She gave it to me the day I started Future Tech, she said, settling deeper into her leather armchair. Said it was time it belonged to someone who understood its worth. Tom sat across from her, his tie loosened, jacket draped over a nearby chair. Sarah had taken Jason home after their celebratory dinner, leaving them alone with coffee and conversations. And that had been waiting to happen. It's beautiful, Tom said, noting how the ring's vintage setting echoed the craftsmanship of her mother's music box. Though I suspect its worth isn't in the stones. No, Alexandra smiled softly. Mother wore it every time she performed, said it reminded her that perfection isn't the goal, connection is. She paused, weighing her next words. James never understood that. He wanted me to replace it with something newer, bigger, something worthy of our position, as he put it. And that's when you knew? Tom asked gently. That's when I started to know. She slipped the ring onto her finger, where it had always belonged. The final straw came later. He wanted to launch a line of products designed to fail after 2 years. Built-in obsolescence, he called it. Good business sense. Tom watched her in the warm lamplight, seeing the strength it had taken to walk away from what must have seemed like everything, to build something new from scratch. Your father would have been proud, he said quietly, of what you've built, what you're still building. I think he would have liked you, Alexandra said, then caught herself, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. I mean, your approach to things, to fixing what others would discard. The moment stretched between them, full of unspoken possibilities. Through the large windows, the city twinkled like stars, a reminder of the world beyond this quiet room. "Sarah asked me something interesting today," Tom said finally. "She wanted to know if I was happy, not just with the project's success, but with everything that's changed." Alexandra's fingers stilled on her ring. "And are you?" I told her about this repair I did last week. Old vacuum cleaner, probably worth less than the parts needed to fix it. But the owner, a young man, said it was his grandmother's, that its sound reminded him of Sunday afternoons at her house. Tom leaned forward, his voice softening. "I used to think I fixed things because that's what I was good at. Now I understand I fix them because every broken thing is part of someone's story." "And your story?" Alexandra asked, barely above a whisper. "What needs fixing there?" Tom met her eyes, seeing past the successful CEO to the woman who understood the value of imperfect things. "Maybe the same thing as yours, the parts we've kept separate, thinking they couldn't work together." Alexandra stood, moving to a cabinet near the window. She returned with a small wooden box he recognized, the one he'd repaired weeks ago. Opening it, she let the familiar melody of Claire de Lune fill the room. "When you fixed this," she said, "you didn't just repair the mechanism, you helped me remember something I'd forgotten. That some things are worth preserving, worth fighting, for even when the world tells you to let them go." "Alexandra, I've spent so long building walls," she continued, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. "Between personal and professional, past and present, heart and head. But you fix things by bringing them together, making them whole again." Tom stood, drawn by the truth in her words, the shared understanding of what they'd both been, circling around for weeks. "Some things," he said softly, "fix themselves. They just need time and trust and—" She closed the distance between them, her hand finding his. The music box played on, its slightly imperfect timing making the melody uniquely theirs. Alexandra's ring caught the light as their fingers intertwined, old and new, precious and practical, finally coming together. "And," she prompted, a smile playing at her lips. "And someone who sees their worth," Tom finished, before closing the last gap between them. The music box played its last notes, winding down to silence. But in that quiet room, high above the city, something else was winding up. A new movement, a fresh start, a repair that had nothing to do with broken machines, and everything to do with healing hearts. The sign wasn't anything fancy, just simple letters in warm copper tones against a deep blue background. Mitchell and Reed Community Repair Center. But seeing it installed above his expanded shop, Tom felt his throat tighten with emotion. They'd insisted on keeping his name first, despite Alexandra's being the more recognizable one. "It's perfect," Alexandra said beside him, her hand finding his in what had become a natural gesture. She'd chosen to dress down for the opening, wearing jeans and a simple blouse rather than her usual corporate attire. Her mother's ring caught the morning light. The transformation of Tom's shop was remarkable, yet somehow subtle. The original space remained largely unchanged, but it now opened into a larger area filled with workstations, diagnostic equipment, and teaching spaces. The worn wooden workbench where he'd fixed Mrs. Henderson's radio still held pride of place. "Dad," Sarah called from inside. "The first class is arriving." They turned to see a group of teenagers filing in, led by their tech education teacher. The kids looked around with mixed expressions of curiosity and skepticism until they saw the array of broken devices waiting at each station. "Welcome to our first repair workshop," Tom said, stepping forward. "Today, you're not just going to learn how to fix things. You're going to learn why they're worth fixing." Alexandra moved to stand beside him. "Each of you has a diagnostic tablet connected to our new system. But the most important tools you'll use today are your hands and your understanding." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Tom moved from station to station, watching as teenagers who'd never held a screwdriver discovered the satisfaction of bringing something back to life. Alexandra demonstrated the diagnostic system she'd helped design, showing how technology could enhance rather than replace human expertise. Mr. Chen arrived with lunch for everyone, beaming at the sight of his old cash register now displayed prominently. As an example of enduring craftsmanship, Mrs. Henderson sat in a corner, teaching a young girl how to identify the sound of a properly tuned radio. Jason darted between workstations, proudly showing off his growing knowledge of tool organization. "Look at this," Sarah said, holding up her tablet. Social media was exploding with photos and videos from similar scenes playing out at their other newly opened centers across the city. The hashtag #FixDon'tReplace had evolved into community repair, with people sharing their own repair stories and experiences. A reporter from the local news stationed himself near the entrance, capturing footage of Alexandra working alongside a teenager to repair an old gaming console. "Ms. Reed," he called out, "how does it feel to see your vision becoming reality?" Alexandra straightened, wiping her hands on a shop towel. "This isn't just my vision," she said, glancing at Tom. "It's a reminder that the most valuable innovations often come from remembering what we already knew, that things and people are worth the effort to repair." As the afternoon wound down, Tom found himself back at his original workbench, showing Jason how to properly clean an old clock mechanism. Alexandra perched on a nearby stool, her silver hair tucked behind one ear, a smudge of dirt on her cheek that she hadn't noticed. "Grandpa," Jason asked, peering through a magnifying glass, "why does fixing things make people so happy?" Tom exchanged a glance with Alexandra, seeing in her smile the same understanding that had brought them together. "Because, buddy," he said, "when we fix something, we're really fixing a piece of someone's story. And everyone's story deserves to keep going." The evening light filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the expanded shop floor. The sign outside caught the sunset, its copper letters glowing warmly. Sarah was already organizing the next day's workshop materials, while Emily from Future Tech updated their social media with photos from the day. "You know," Alexandra said softly, moving to stand closer to Tom, "when I first walked into your cafe that morning with my broken phone, I thought I was just looking for a quick fix." Tom pulled her closer, both of them watching Jason carefully. "Reassemble the clock. Sometimes the quick fixes lead us to the deeper repairs we didn't know we needed." Through the windows, they could see more people arriving, community members bringing items to fix, teenagers returning with their parents, curious onlookers drawn by the activity. The sign above them continued to glow in the fading light. No longer just a name, but a promise that in a world increasingly eager to discard and replace, there would always be a place where things and people could be made whole again. The legal documents arrived during the repair center's third successful week of operation. Tom recognized Morrison's law firm's letterhead before Alexandra even opened the envelope. She stood in what had become their shared office, her face growing darker as she read. "They're claiming patent infringement," she said, her voice tight, "on technology Tech Corp developed 5 years ago." Her fingers made air quotes around the word, and Tom could hear years of old anger beneath her professional tone. "But our diagnostic system is completely different," he said, moving to read over her shoulder. "It's built on sharing knowledge, not restricting it. They know that. This isn't about patents." Alexandra set the papers down with careful precision. "Morrison's trying to force a shutdown during the legal review. He knows we're expanding to 5 more cities next month. Perfect timing to spook investors." The morning sun streamed through their office window, highlighting the framed photo on Alexandra's desk, taken on opening day, showing both their families together, Jason proudly holding up his first successfully repaired clock. Beside it sat the music box, a reminder of how far they'd come. Sarah burst in without knocking, her tablet displaying urgent news alerts. TechCorp's stock jumped 12 points on the announcement. They're calling it a defense of innovation. Her voice dripped with disgust. "Dad, Alexandra, you need to see this." The video showed Morrison at a press conference, perfectly composed in an expensive suit. "While we support the idea of community repair centers," he was saying, "we cannot allow unauthorized use of protected technologies. This isn't about stifling competition, it's about protecting innovation." Innovation! Alexandra's laugh held no humor. He wouldn't know real innovation if it fixed his phone in a cafe. She caught Tom's eye, and they both smiled at the memory. The office door opened again, this time admitting Emily and Marcus from the development team. "We've gone through every line of code," Marcus said without preamble. "Our system isn't anything like theirs. We can prove it." Emily nodded, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by fierce determination. "And we've got documentation of every step of the development process, plus the community engagement protocols are completely original. They've never done anything remotely similar." "It won't matter," Alexandra said quietly. "The review process alone could take months. Even a temporary shutdown would kill our momentum." Tom moved to the window, watching the busy scene below. The repair center was full, as it had been every day since opening. A young girl was learning to solder from Mrs. Henderson, while Mr. Chen explained the mechanics of commercial kitchen equipment to a group of culinary students. "What if we open source it?" he said suddenly. "What?" Alexandra turned to him. "The diagnostic system? The training protocols? All of it. Make it freely available." He turned back to the room. "Morrison wants to claim we stole proprietary technology. Let's make it impossible to steal because it belongs to everyone." Sarah's eyes lit up. "The community would love it. It fits perfectly with everything we stand for." "The board will hate it," Alexandra said, but Tom could hear the consideration in her voice. "Our stock price will drop initially," Emily finished. "But look at this." She pulled up social media metrics on her tablet. "The repair centers aren't just fixing things. They're changing how people think about ownership, about waste, about community. That's worth more than any proprietary system." Alexandra picked up the legal documents, weighing them in her hand. Then she looked at the photo on her desk, at the music box beside it. "My mother used to say that music belongs to everyone. That's why it heals." She smiled. "Maybe some innovations should work the same way." "We'll need to move fast," Marcus said, already pulling out his laptop, "before they can file an injunction. Then, let's move fast." Alexandra's voice held the same determination that had built future tech. "Sarah, call a press conference for this afternoon. Emily, prepare the social media campaign. Marcus, get the development team ready to release everything." As the others rushed out, Alexandra turned to Tom. "This could cost us everything," she said softly. "The stock price, the board's support." Tom took her hand, feeling the familiar shape of her mother's ring. "Or it could give everything to everyone. Isn't that what we've been trying to do all along?" She squeezed his hand, then reached for her phone. Time to show Morrison what real innovation looks like. The legal documents lay forgotten on the desk. As they began to work, their shared purpose stronger than any corporate threat. Outside, the repair center hummed with activity, each fixed item a small victory in a larger revolution, one that was about to become unstoppable. The photograph sat in a simple frame on Tom's workbench, taken 6 months after they'd open-sourced the repair system. It showed their extended family gathered in front of the original repair center. Tom and Alexandra in the middle, her head resting comfortably on his shoulder. Sarah beside them, proudly wearing her new project director badge. Jason perched on Mr. Chen's shoulders, Mrs. Henderson beaming from her favorite chair, and a dozen other community members who'd become part of their story. "Still can't believe how well it worked," Sarah said, adjusting the frame slightly. She'd stopped by the shop during her lunch break from overseeing the nationwide community engagement program. Morrison never saw it coming. Tom smiled, remembering the day they'd released everything, code, protocols, training materials, to the public. TechCorp's stock had indeed dropped, But future techs had soared as people recognized the bigger picture. Their repair centers had multiplied, not through corporate expansion, but through community adoption. "Your mother would have loved this," he said to Alexandra, who was reviewing reports on her tablet while sitting in what had become her usual spot near his workbench. She looked up, her silver hair catching the afternoon light. "Which part?" she asked, though her smile suggested she knew. "All of it. The way it's grown, evolved, become something bigger than we imagined." He gestured to the tablet in her hands. "What's the latest count?" 312 independent repair centers using our open source system, she reported, from Seoul to Santiago, each one adapting it to their local needs, adding their own improvements back to the shared knowledge base. The door chimed as Jason burst in, fresh from school, followed by his teacher. "Grandpa, Ms. Rodriguez wants to start a repair club at school. Can you help?" Alexandra set down her tablet, her corporate efficiency softening into grandmother mode. "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. Maybe we could—" She was interrupted by Emily rushing in, her usual enthusiasm amplified by excitement. "You need to see this." She pulled up a video on the shop's main display screen. It was Morrison, looking considerably less polished than his usual media appearances. "Tech Corp announces a new initiative in sustainable technology," he was saying, the words clearly costing him. "Following the success of the community repair movement, we are revising our approach to product design and customer support." Sarah laughed. "Guess he finally figured out he couldn't beat us, so he's joining us?" "Not joining," Alexandra corrected, but her voice held more amusement than bitterness. "Adapting, like everything else in nature. Adapt or become obsolete." Tom watched as more people filtered into the shop. Students from the afternoon repair, class, locals with items to fix, curious tourists who'd read about them online. The photograph on his workbench captured just a small part of what they'd built, but its spirit filled the entire space. "Oh, before I forget," Sarah said, pulling out an envelope. "Jason's school project won first prize. They asked him what he wanted to be when he grows up." The paper showed Jason's careful handwriting. "I want to fix things like Grandpa and Ms. Alexandra, not just broken stuff, but big things too, like how they fixed the way people think about throwing things away." Alexandra's hand found Tom's, her mother's ring warm against his fingers. "Speaking of fixing things," she said softly, "have you thought more about the house?" They'd been discussing moving in together, finding a place that could be truly theirs while keeping the shop as their base of operations. "Actually," he said, "I was thinking we could fix up the old Peterson place, the one with the garden you loved." Her eyes lit up. "The Victorian that needs complete restoration? That's going to be quite a project. Good thing we know some people who are good at fixing things." Their laughter drew Jason over, curious about the joke. The boy climbed onto his usual stool at the workbench, automatically reaching for the tools he'd learned to use under their guidance. In the background, Emily was showing Ms. Rodriguez how to access the open-source training materials, while Sarah explained their community engagement model to some visiting students. The photograph watched over it all, capturing a moment that had become a movement. But more than that, it showed what happened when broken things, whether objects, systems, or hearts, were given the chance to be made whole again. "You know what?" Alexandra said, surveying their busy shop with satisfaction. "I think we did. Fix something big here. We fixed the future." Tom pulled her closer, thinking of all the paths that had led them here. "No," he corrected gently. "We just showed people it was never really broken, just waiting for the right tools to help it work. Again." The cafe hadn't changed much in the year since Tom had first fixed Alexandra's phone. The same warm aroma of coffee filled the air. The same morning light painted golden rectangles on the worn linoleum floor. Even Tom's usual corner table waited, empty as if it had been keeping his spot all this time. "Feels strange being back here," Alexandra said, sliding into the seat across from him. She was dressed casually today in a soft sweater, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. Her mother's ring caught the light as she reached for the coffee the waitress brought without being asked. Strange good or strange bad? Tom asked, though her smile had already answered. Good. Like coming full circle. She pulled something from her bag, an old receipt, carefully preserved. Found this while we were packing up my office. Tom took it gently. The faded paper showed a single coffee order from that first morning. Alexandra had apparently paid for his coffee too, though he hadn't known it at the time. You kept this? Seemed important somehow. Even then. She looked around the cafe, now filling with the morning crowd. Did you ever imagine we'd end up here? Here specifically or here metaphorically? His eyes crinkled with amusement. Both, I suppose. She reached across the table to take his hand, a gesture that had become as natural as breathing. The movers are coming to the Victorian tomorrow. Sarah says the garden's already planning spring roses. They'd spent the past month restoring the old Peterson place, turning it into a home that honored both its history and their future. Jason had his own workshop in the basement under strict supervision, while Sarah had claimed the sunny breakfast. Nook as her remote office for managing their now global community programs. Oh, that reminds me, Alexandra continued, pulling out her tablet. The latest numbers came in. Over 500 independent repair centers now. And look at this. She showed him a photo of a repair center in a small village in India, where local craftsmen had integrated their traditional knowledge with Future Tech's open-source system. They're all so different, Tom marveled, scrolling through more photos. Each community making it their own. That's what makes it work, Alexandra said. We didn't just give them tools. We gave them permission to trust their own wisdom. The cafe door chimed, and they looked up to see Mrs. Henderson entering with her radio. She spotted them and smiled, making her way over. Thought I might find you here. This old thing's acting up again. Bring it by the shop later, Tom suggested, but Mrs. Henderson shook her head. No. Time I learned to fix it myself. That's what your classes are for, aren't they? Her eyes twinkled. Though I might need some extra help with the smaller screws. These old hands aren't what they used to be. After she left, Alexandra squeezed Tom's hand. That's the real victory, isn't it? Not the stock price or the global expansion, just people rediscovering their own capability to fix things. Speaking of fixing things, Tom said, reaching into his pocket, I have something for you. He pulled out a small, worn tool, the same screwdriver he'd used to fix her phone that first morning. Thought you might want to add it to that memory box you're making. Alexandra took it, her eyes soft with understanding. Our first repair. Together. First of many. He watched as she turned the tool over in her hands, seeing not just their past, but their future in its worn surface. You know, my father used to say that the most important repairs are the ones you don't see, the connections rebuilt, the trust restored. He was a wise man. Alexandra carefully tucked the screwdriver away. I wish I could have met him. He would have loved you, almost as much as I do. The words hung in the morning air, simple and true. Outside the city was waking up, people hurrying past with their phones and tablets, but something had changed. Here and there, you could spot the repair center logo in shop windows, see people carrying tools instead of shopping bags. We should get to the shop, Alexandra said finally. Jason's teaching his first junior repair class today. Tom stood, offering her his arm. Wouldn't miss it for the world. As they left the cafe, Tom glanced back at their corner table, at the receipt. Alexandra had kept all this time. Sometimes the smallest things, a broken phone, a kept receipt, a moment of kindness, could spark the biggest changes. All you had to do was recognize their worth and be brave enough to see where fixing them might lead. Ready? Alexandra asked, her eyes bright with the future. Always, Tom replied, and together they stepped out into the morning light, leaving the cafe behind, but carrying its memory with them, the place where their story of repair, redemption, and love had first begun.